You're on.
Hi, my name is Dyandria. Welcome to The Real News. I have with me two very special guests. The gentleman to my far left, Daryl Hunter, has flown in from Arizona today to be on the program to explain a conference that he's holding concerning the 9/11 tragedy. And also with me is our independent researcher, Mr. Joe Carranza, and he has a great deal of knowledge about the 9/11 disaster. But before I go into that, and before we start asking them questions, we will have a live call-in today, by the way. So you write the number down, and in 10 minutes we'll be taking calls. Today I was watching the History Channel, and they were, by coincidence, also doing the 9/11 theory. And I thought it was absolutely the most outrageous story they gave about the firemen who were looting a particular store, and there were numerous witnesses to these firemen going into the store and stealing all kinds of clothes and putting them on their fire truck, and then they proceeded to go into the towers thereafter. Well, there was a scientist. I can't even believe that the History Channel would allow this type of programming. It's a disgrace. But the History Channel had this scientist who explained that the reason those clothes landed on the fire truck is the force of the explosion took the clothes, lifted them, and placed them on the truck. So shame on you, History Channel. Now, first I'd like to introduce you to my first guest, Mr. Daryl Hunter. He's flown in all the way from Arizona to do this program, and his organization, is it your website, 9/11?
It's part of Arizona 9/11 Truth, is who's hosting the conference. And the conference itself is the 9/11 Accountability Strategies and Solutions.
So it's 9/11accountability.org.
Yes, yes.
Okay, so could you please tell the people exactly when this conference is going to be held and why it's important that they attend?
Yeah, it's going to be held February 23rd through the 25th at the San Marcos Resort in Chandler, Arizona, which is a suburb of Phoenix. So it's pretty much Phoenix. But we're going to discuss strategies and solutions to break through the media block and all of the problems we've had with getting any kind of accountability with 9/11. Nobody's been brought to justice. There really hasn't been any investigations. He can field that one probably a lot better than I can. But I haven't seen anybody personally go to jail for what are just gross mishaps. If their story was true, which I don't believe it is, but if it was true, there was so many people that were asleep at the wheel, and nobody was held accountable. And it seemed like the 9/11 Commission report to me, when I saw them putting together the commission, they were more worried about nobody getting in trouble for it or nobody being blamed for it. And I just can't understand how that's okay for our government, but if I break the law, I go to jail. So.
Did you ever read the book entitled Behold a Pale Horse?
Yes.
Well, it seems that
William Cooper.
William Cooper, rather. Now, this book was published in 1993, so it was written before 1993. He somehow predicted that this was going to happen, that they were going to create a major disaster within the United States of America, blame it on terrorists so we could go over there and create a war in order to get the oil and the poppy seed. Is that sort of what, how could anybody write a book that this is going to happen and it happens?
Well, William Cooper knew his history. That was how he predicted it, because they run the same game plan over and over again. If you look at everything that's lousy that's happened pretty much in history, the same people, same organizations, same governments that transferred from one corrupt government to just a new corrupt government to hide behind. They're behind all of this stuff.
So what do you have to say?
Well, concerning the issue that I was delegated here to field, the 9/11 Commission. Right? If we took a look at the 9/11 Commission, Daryl presented the idea that there was no investigation. There was no real investigation. Everything that was known about 9/11 was known almost instantly. Within the first 24 hours, we saw pictures of the alleged hijackers on television. They said, these are the guys that did it. Then these people who headed the 9/11 Commission can be described as arch establishment damage control experts. Right? They failed to find any evidence of any governmental wrongdoing in any of the prior investigations that they were involved in. The so-called commission was supposed to be headed by Henry Kissinger, who probably has never told the truth about anything in his life, was going to tell the American public the truth about 9/11. And then the commission ended up being headed by Thomas Keane, who sits on the board of directors of a company called Delta Oil, or he did at one time sit on the board of directors of a Saudi Arabian company called Delta Oil, along with Khalid bin Mahfouz, who is the brother-in-law of Osama bin Laden. So we've got the business partner of the brother-in-law of Osama bin Laden heading the 9/11, the so-called 9/11 investigative commission. So
did the major media ever expose that?
The major media, no, the major media never touched on this. Never touched on the ISI CIA connection, which is the Pakistani intelligence service. Never dived into where all this information was coming from. Every time a fact surfaced, they said, well, it was KSM, Khalid Sheikh Mohammed. KSM told us this, and KSM told us that. Well, where is KSM? Well, we don't know. We can't tell you.
Yeah.
You know, the official 9/11 explanation is extracted purely from the cartoon world.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, it's just so obvious that there's no way planes could get into our city and cause such a disaster. But if there really were terrorists that somehow could have done that, I would think that the target would have been Wall Street. Now that could have created, if they destroyed our stock market, that would have crumbled our country. But isn't it interesting that they just hit the towers, which an insignificant people, what I mean by insignificant, I mean these are human beings' lives, but wouldn't it be worth more to have killed stock market people, the people controlling the money of our country?
Well, there was an operation in Italy at the end of World War II called Operation Gladio. And an Italian official is on record as saying that the goal of Operation Gladio, which involved a series of bombings intended to cower the Italian public, to get them to huddle under the security umbrella supplied by the Allied forces. He said the goal was to kill women and children, people of no real importance, right? Workers, right? And the goal was just
now,
that.
why was that the goal?
To cower the Italian public, well, to provide a smokescreen also for
providing a smokescreen, exactly.
The destruction of the democratic movement in Italy, the rise of democratic movements and socialist organizations, so-called communist organizations in Italy, workers' rights groups, unions. That was part of the agenda, to destroy anything resembling that, because those things were bad for business. Those things eroded corporate profits.
What do you think, Mr. Hunter? You think you should have him as one of your speakers in Arizona?
Yeah, I'd like to see him get up there and talk.
Yeah, so would I.
But there's a maxim in law that says, too great certainty destroys certainty itself. Too great certainty destroys certainty itself. And here we have everything that was known about the 9/11 event was known almost instantly, and certainly.
Oh, I thought that was so
certainty.
interesting. They knew who the terrorists were.
Oh, that's amazing. That was the fastest investigation in history.
Yeah, exactly. And also, a lot of people missed this, but a lot of people didn't. do you remember they found the passport of the hijacker on Duane Street? Well, I thought that was so interesting. Everything is nothing but ashes, including the bodies. But the passports were in a hole. Now, didn't that amaze you? Or did you hear that?
Yeah, I heard that. That's one of the things that made me laugh.
Oh, I was hysterical. I said, I can't believe it. And how could the people be that ignorant? I was just on jury duty a few days ago, and people were saying, oh, cops, it's so hard for me to believe that they lie. The cops and the firemen were the first to loot. They were the first to rip off the jewelry on the bodies laying there of people's loved ones, taking off their wedding rings. I mean, this is all the living spouse had of the person was the jewelry they had. They went into their pockets. Even when people were dismembered, they'd go into, like, nothing's left but the legs. They'd go in there and take out the wallets. This is our finest of New York. In any event, I didn't mean to get off of it, but tell more, because we're going to start getting phone calls in here. People want to ask questions. Daryl, if you can mention something some extraordinary evidence that we have. We know that this is an absolute fraud, and we know that the media is controlled, and they can't expose it. But what do you know that you can get people to think about?
It's just a huge deception from start to finish. If you look at how the towers came down, 2 perfect collapses of towers hit by airplanes, I mean, it doesn't seem possible to me. And that's one of the things that really gets me, is it's too perfect. Those buildings should have been spread across blocks and blocks and blocks if they came down the way that they would have, if gravity would have taken them down. You look at one of the buildings that gets only hit in 2 corners, and you still see that the support is intact in the corner between where the plane went. So I don't see how it would come down. I don't see there would be enough to damage a building of that caliber. So.
And you said something to me the other day about there was steel gutters or something underneath. Were you the one who mentioned that to me?
I think there was some steel that was hidden, that was recently discovered. So there was some movement to try to get the proper forensic examination of the steel, because the alternative theory and the more plausible theory as to what caused the destruction of the towers is that the towers were taken down by pre-planted high-tech explosives.
Of course.
So the way to discover that is by examining that steel. That steel will show the signs of thermite or RDX or these high-tech explosives that are commonly used in controlled demolitions. And the only way to do that is the proper forensic examination. But Mayor Adolph Giuliani, a.k.a. Rudolph Giuliani, saw to it that no such examination would be conducted, because the steel from the Trade Center and Building 7 was immediately carted off the scene, the disaster site, and shipped off to Pakistan and China and India before any such examination could be conducted.
Yeah.
Over the objections, and then that program was continued by Mayor Bloomberg, better known as Michael Bloomberg.
Right, exactly. Yeah, and they dummied down America. I mean, if this was the 20s or 30s, people would have automatically, in masses, realized that this was a deliberate setup by our own government. You can't say terrorists snuck into the buildings every night and with dynamite and planted it on every other floor like you do correctly for a demolition, the way it fell. But people are looking at it like, oh, I guess that's the way it happened. And the witnesses, the eyewitnesses that day, I was down there filming. I was there for hours. The eyewitnesses said, we heard massive explosions. So the media did admit that on television, but they brushed it off. Oh, that was the boiler system.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's just as dumb of a statement as what the History Channel did today, saying all of those stolen clothes from the department store landed in the fireman's truck because the explosives lifted them and dropped them in there. Oh my God.
There's no limit.
If the explosives that day lifted it and put them in my car, I'd be in jail.
There's no limit.
In spite of what the scientists said.
The distortions and some of the audacity of the distortions and omissions that were contained in the so-called official explanation. But what Daryl touched on at the beginning of the program tonight, as far as nobody being held accountable, allegedly, according to the official 9/11 explanation, it was an intelligence failure. It was a massive simultaneous intelligence failure on every level of our national security system. The intelligence apparatus, the national security apparatus, everybody failed simultaneously on 9/11.
Isn't that just absolutely amazing?
And like
it all
Daryl
happened
in
at
concert.
the same
And like Daryl said, nobody's been held accountable. Nobody's been fired. Nobody's been reprimanded. Nobody's been demoted. Nobody has been court-martialed for dereliction of duty. Nobody's been jailed. Nobody's been arrested. Nobody's been put on trial for this.
How do you put in jail George Bush, his father, Cheney, Hillary Clinton? She was a part of that too. How do you put all these, and of course, Giuliani and...
It's a work in progress.
I mean, it's a whole lot of people involved in this. How do you put them all in jail?
Well, that tells you that the perpetrators...
You mean the people could run our country ourselves?
Well,
oh boy, would that be great.
That tells
We'd have a real democracy.
Imagine that.
The fact that no one has gone down for the count, so to speak, in connection with 9/11 tells you that the perpetrators, the true perpetrators of the 9/11 event, are too high up in the power structure to be prosecuted. That's what that tells you.
Mm-hmm. And that we have a caller. Yes, caller. Who would you like to ask a question to? Daryl?
It doesn't matter. I just want to put it out there. Anybody can answer it who wants to. My question is that, first of all, my name is Regina, and I was a volunteer at Ground Zero Food Services. So we were in tents down at South Street Seaport, and I was there for a week, and I never thought twice about it. Just jumped in and did something that felt good to help in some small way.
Thank you.
5 years later, I'm noticing that my lungs are not right.
Oh my God.
And so I'm wondering if there's any way that I can get support for this.
You know, I don't have the direct answer for that, but I will tell you, when I was down there, it was so obvious to me that I was breathing polluted air, seriously polluted. And I was wearing those huge masks that weed out the asbestos.
Yeah.
And I had some people laughing at me, ha ha ha, you're paranoid.
Yeah.
And then other people who were not wearing masks would say to me, good for you, I wish I had the guts to do that. Because you look ridiculous.
Well, God bless you for
But
thinking to do
I
that
wish I had known you at that time. I would have talked you into it. But there has to be, I think she could file a lawsuit.
If you email me at sept11 inside job, that's SEPT, the number 11 inside job at AOL.com, I will get you that information about what you could do and where you can go for to get that kind of testing and the proper medical treatment and testing.
Wonderful.
Thank you very much.
Do you have an email also you can give her?
Yes. Well, actually, if she could leave her information, I can get it to her. I don't have. I'll have to do it when I get back to Arizona.
Okay.
Okay.
All right.
Great. I just, you know, everything is what it is, and in hindsight, we see more clearly. But it's all outrageous, really.
Absolutely.
I have a question for her. When you've gone to get treatment for your lungs and gone to your doctors, what kind of response are you getting from them?
Actually, you know, I haven't. I've mentioned it. I'm someone who really steers clear of doctors if I possibly can, but I've just noticed that I've had a more frequent, occurrence of like getting sick, getting the flu. It's much harder to get over it, and when it happens, I notice that I really have trouble breathing. It's like my lungs are not, I'm a singer, and I've always had tremendous lung power, lung capacity. And I notice a shortness of breath. It's much harder to get over things when that area becomes compromised. And so I suddenly, in the last year, I realized that there was a connection. And I was also told that it's not unusual, that like 5 years later, people are having like latent reaction.
Oh yes, a fireman recently passed away. Or was it a fireman or a police officer?
Thousands of people have fallen ill. Thousands.
Yeah. So,
but it's like a delay response.
It is a delay response. I mean, I think the only ones who really showed problems the fastest, the soonest one was the dog. Do you remember the dog?
Yes,
Yeah,
teams of rescue dogs died just weeks and months
just
after
weeks,
the
yeah.
9/11 event. Yeah.
So yeah, please do something. Please
now,
email.
Mayor Bloomberg is on record officially as saying there's no way to tell that those people got sick from that event.
Oh, of course, because they don't want to give the money.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
And the first 40,
you get what you deserve, because Miss, you were a volunteer. You did the right thing. There are so many families out there that lost their loved ones, and God bless you for what you did. But it's your turn now, so go for the help. And I agree with you about doctors. I steer clear as well. There's more medical mishaps, you know.
It's like joining that club, you know, that includes all the people that were exposed to Agent Orange and the Tuskegee experiments,
exactly,
and the LSD experiments, and the bacteria that was released in the New York subway to study the ill effects of that by this government, this criminal enterprise that masquerades as the people's government in this society. The people that are being exposed to Agent Orange not Agent Orange, depleted uranium, right? The fallout from the depleted uranium in Iraq, and in the 2001 campaign, in the 1991 war, and in the 2003 war in Iraq also. Tens of thousands of soldiers, tens of thousands of emergency medical evacuations from the chronic fatigue syndrome. They find traces of this depleted uranium in the testicles of the soldiers that are affected by it. So they join in that special club of Americans that set out to do the right thing and ended up on the short end of the stick.
I know, that's horrible.
It's actually part of the official government lie, I guess, is that when the buildings were hit, that it knocked off all the asbestos, and that was costly asbestos they would have had to remove from the buildings over the coming years, which would have cost billions of dollars. So she really probably needs to seek treatment, because
definitely,
there's going to be fibers in her lungs that won't come out. So, but thank you for what you did.
Yeah. So
we take another call?
Yeah. Do we have any other calls?
No.
Okay. I guess we'll just talk for more.
Yeah. Okay. We have 4 minutes left.
Do we have that roll in? Do you want to show that roll in? Do we still have time? Okay, let's show a little roll in that in every video of the World Trade Center destruction, massive horizontal ejections can be seen bursting from the side of the building with incredible velocity, and we're going to see those ejections. I don't know if we'll be able to hear that. I don't know if the viewers are hearing the dialogue.
Kind of secondary follow-up explosion on the World Trade Center #2.
Just prior to that huge explosion that we all heard and felt.
Suddenly, while talking to an officer, we heard a very loud blast, an explosion.
And we were standing here when there was some sort of collapse or explosion. To me, it sounded like an explosion. We heard a big explosion coming down.
We saw some kind of explosion, a lot of smoke come out at the top.
Just seconds ago, there was a huge explosion, and it appears right now the second World Trade Tower has just collapsed.
Trying to get something that is secondary explosions and then the subsequent collapses.
One of those almost looks like one of those planned implosions.
The entire building has just collapsed, as if a demolition team set off. When you see the old demolitions of these old buildings, it folded down on itself, and it is...
Anybody who's ever watched a building being demolished on purpose knows that if you're going to do this, you have to get at the under infrastructure of a building and bring it down.
firefighter Louis Caccioli told People Weekly on September 24th.
We could
See, there you go. See, in the beginning, when they weren't told to keep their mouths shut, they admitted it.
They reported the explosion.
They reported the explosions, and they admitted that this is a way a deliberate demolition is created. So we have 2 minutes left. Say everything you can about 9/11 in 2 minutes.
I just want to inject that. I'm a little disappointed at the clip because we have much better clips that show the massive amount of building material being forced out with incredible velocity, 75, 100 feet from the side of each tower, just instantaneous to the onset of the demolition of each tower.
Well, you can bring that better clip to his conference in Arizona.
There you go. That's what we're looking
And
at.
how would you like to close?
I would like to close that if there's anybody out there that has a conscience that knows about 9/11, you need to come forward. We need this information. We're not going to stop asking for it. We're going to keep going, and we're going to keep going. And hopefully it won't turn into something like the Warren Commission report where, 20 years later we finally get the answers and the people were right, that, it was, he was shot by government interference, I guess. But what I really want to get to the people is that you need to get up and you need to get active, because this isn't the only boogeyman that's in the closet. They're using 9/11 to take away your rights. 6166 is just the most horrible bill that has ever been passed in the history of this country. It pretty much eliminates this country. It eliminates your rights. So if you want your rights back, you need to stand up, and now's the time, because you're not going to get another chance.
That's Patriot Act 2?
That would be the Military Commissions Act.
I would think that the biggest activists in all this should be those living spouses or living loved ones of those who died in 9/11, because knowing that this was a deliberate act by our government, and now more people are dying. More people are dying, innocent people in another country.
Yeah, they'll continue to kill everybody.
And the strangest thing about that is you would think if it was supposed to be, oh, we're going to go get those terrorists for your sake because so many of you died, meaning people like us. Well, why is it there were more, all the mourners said, no, we don't want a war. We don't want a war. And our government didn't listen to that.
They did not want the death of their loved ones to be avenged by the death of innocent people in Iraq or Afghanistan or anywhere else.
Exactly. So that's it. We have 9 seconds left and no more callers. So we'll see you next week, I guess.
See you at the
and
conference.
we could roll our credits.